So this is part of our career exploration series. And Chris, I know being the program manager for our computer information technology, if you could just first share what you teach here at Lake-Sumter, how long you've kind of been here, kind of current job responsibilities and so forth.
Sure. Well, I've been here at Lake-Sumter since August of 2014. Started out as a instructor, a temporary instructor in the computer science program. I went to e-learning for a year as a manager of instructional technology. And then I came back over to the instructional side, and I've been here ever since.
So describe your career path. Where did you go to college? Did you go to college for computers? What were some of the extracurricular activities? Were you part of like the computer club? Did you do an internship? Talk about that led you to this.
Well, my computer career was kind of accidental, actually. I went to the University of Vermont for my bachelor's degree, and I got a degree in Spanish, which
Different.
I really don't use very much. But I bought a computer, and my friends were tired of answering my questions, so I decided to learn how to do it myself. As I got into DOS, because that's what I was using, DOS, Windows 3.1, I spent a lot of time learning the ins and outs of that system and just fell in love with it. So I went back to school at a little private college called Champlain College and got a certificate, a technical certificate in computer networking and support. And it just snowballed from there.
Any challenges that you faced when you were studying? Anything that you discovered as far as your major, or even when you had to learn DOS? And then you already talked a little bit about when you switched paths, but when was it that made you feel like that's a career path for you?
I would say right away. I mean, the moment I started taking classes in computing, because I came in with a lot of knowledge already. I spent a lot of time reading books and trade journals and just playing on my computer, just taking it apart, installing stuff, putting it back together, whatever I had to do. So at that point, I really wanted to work in the field. So before I even finished that certificate, I had actually applied for a job as a lab manager for a small liberal arts college in Vermont, and got the job. So I was there for 3 years as a lab manager, help desk, that type of work. It was a real great place to kind of apply what I knew and build up my skills.
So talk about that first job and then the first, other major job in this career field. How did you find out about it? How did you get the job? Talk a little bit more about what industry. What did that entail? What type of work was that?
Well, as far as finding the job, there's this thing we used to have called newspapers. People don't get newspapers anymore. They buy all their information off the web. But I was looking for the want ads in the newspaper, local newspaper, and just happened to see the position posting. And I was like, hey, that's in the IT field. I really don't want to be in retail the rest of my life because I was working while I was in college at a bookstore, which was great. But I saw myself doing something else. So that's how I found that job. What was the other part of your question?
Well, just sort of what was your job responsibilities? You said lab.
Oh, once I got into the job.
Yes.
Oh, well, my job responsibilities. Every job that you get is going to have that little caveat at the end, as other duties as assigned, right? So I did a lot of things. I mean, the primary job was to maintain the computer labs on campus. So we had Windows computers, we had Macintosh computers. I had to install software, repair hardware, make sure everything was running properly. If there were any updates to do, I had to do the updates on those devices. I also had to work a couple hours each day on the help desk. All the staff I worked with, we rotated through the help desk hours. So I was able to spend some time on the phone helping people at their desks, or people would come in with their devices and I'd help them there as well. So I had a really well-rounded kind of experience in terms of what I was doing in that job.
What was the next, I guess, major job in that field? Like what you left that, so that was a college position?
It was a college position.
So once you graduated and you were trying to really go into the field, what was your next major?
My next step really was because my wife at the time had gotten a job offer working in Washington, D.C., and I went with her. So I left my job behind at Middlebury College, which is the school I was talking about. And when I got to D.C., it was during the tech boom, and I couldn't walk down the street without tripping over a job. I mean, there was jobs, they were just giving them out like candy. So I contacted a headhunter, and within a day I had a job working at the USDA in downtown D.C. And that job was more the same. It was tech support. It was walking around to people's desks and helping them fix problems and install software and all those things that I already kind of was doing, answering questions, teach people how to use software applications and whatnot. That was a temporary position, and it was actually going to lead to a full-time position with a technology provider that was contracted by the government. But I wasn't crazy about wearing a tie every day, and I wasn't crazy about the commute. So I ended up going back into higher education. I found a job at the University of Maryland, which was more or less the same job that I was doing at Middlebury College, except it grew. I did videography, did some web development, got more into networking. I was able to spend a lot of time setting up web servers and application servers in Microsoft Windows Server. Started out back then, it was 2003. It's up to 2016 now. But the job just evolved. It was just an evolution of the technology changing, and I had to roll with that. And so it's never exactly what it is when you start.
So talk about that career field a little bit, because it sounded like you started off just general tech support in a computer lab that has evolved. So can you talk a little bit about the computer field and what are the different paths for someone who's interested in computers, but they maybe don't understand sort of the broad scope or what maybe specific pathways are called? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, unless you come into the career field with some very specific skill that's highly sought after, like a coder type position, anybody who comes into the IT field is going to start out as basically tech support. That's where everybody cuts their teeth in this field. It could be phone support, could be desktop support, could be now, they have web chat support. People will send a message in and chat with you and you'll answer questions for them. Those skills are extremely important in terms of where you might go in the future in this realm. People often discount starting out at the bottom, but I would say starting out at the bottom for me was one of the most important things ever, because it gave me a broad exposure to many areas in the IT field, and it helped me decide the direction I wanted to take. Other things I did in IT, I didn't really know I was going in that direction. I just was kind of following the path, and these things just kind of popped up. So if I can give anybody any kind of advice on going into the field, it's that just be prepared to start at the bottom. But if you're really good and you really work hard at it, you can work your way up very quickly. And the path you take will open up for you. You'll find eventually, maybe even very quickly, what it is you really want to do in that field, and just go for it.
So many students do a lot of on their own tinkering, playing around, their own programs and so forth with computers. So they immediately think, when I have to pick a major, I'll do something in computers.
Right.
So first talk about the CIT program at Lake-Sumter, what sort of job paths that prepares you for. But then if you could touch upon other potential computer majors that students could pick depending on what part of IT they're interested in.
Okay. Well, the AS degree here at Lake-Sumter, and we also have a couple of certificates. We have digital forensics, IT analysis, and help desk certificates. They're all designed to give you the tools that you need to start out in the field. If you're changing careers, this degree, these certificates will give you the skill set you need to start at that base level and work your way up. If you're already in the field, come in with an open mind, because we can actually teach you new things you may not know, help you hone the skills you already have. So really the point of our program is to get you that basic set of core skills that you need to get into the field. If you decide to go on into something really specific in the future, there are other schools that you can transfer to afterwards, or programs you can go into that will provide you the skills and the training that you would not get here per se. Some things, we can't train for everything, but we can get you the basic skills you need to help you decide which direction to go, and then you move on from there.
How would a student learn what part of computers, that large field, would be a better fit for them in terms of hardware, software, network support, user support, systems development, app development? What would be some of those possible majors?
Oh, you mean if you were to leave here and go on to another school?
Or not even if they're not necessarily starting here. If they're doing an AA here and they plan to transfer and they know, I want to do something in computers because, I like computers, I'm always tinkering computers.
Oh, okay.
What are those possible other ways that they can explore besides just the IT user support?
Right. Well, I mean, if they're doing an AA, they can specialize, do the track in computer science. So they'll get an exposure to some of the basic courses we offer here. And then they can take other courses as their electives. They can kind of pick and choose what they want for their electives. That particular path is good, especially if you want to transfer. Our four-year schools, University of Central Florida, UF, Valencia, they all have amazing computer science programs. But those programs are also much more specialized than ours. They're going to have specializations in programming, specializations in hardware development, things that we don't really cover here. But what we do here will give you a broad exposure of the different areas you could potentially look into and move into as you move on to a higher level degree.
So what would you say are the most and least rewarding aspects of working in computers in this career field?
Well, it depends on the person. If you really enjoy computers and enjoy technology, the simple act of being in that career field is the most rewarding part of it. The least rewarding part of working in the career field is probably some of the people you have to deal with when you're providing tech support.
Customer service.
You got to be patient, and that goes back to a very important thing that we also try to instill in this program are the soft skills. You work in IT, you're not just hiding in an office all day, not interacting with people. You need to know how to speak with people. You need to know how to answer questions, explain things in a way that someone who doesn't understand those particular things can learn from you. And patience. You have to have patience. Because what may be easy for you is not easy for somebody else. And it's easy to become frustrated with that person if you just can't get through to them and help them. So I'd say that the least rewarding thing may be the stress that comes from sometimes having to deal with a very difficult customer. But that's the same anywhere. If you work in retail or anywhere else, you're going to have that.
So what other skills or experience would you recommend for someone pursuing this career? You already touched upon customer service and soft skills, but some of the skills that maybe a student who thinks what a job at working in IT entails. What are some of those skills, or what are experiences they should look for to help work on those skills?
Well, I would not discount the value of volunteering or doing an internship while you're in school, because any experience you get is going to be a good experience. Whether you end up using what you learned or not, I mean, it's gonna help you kind of broaden your horizons and understand that there are so many facets to this. One other thing I would say in terms of, because your question kind of asked me, what other skills would I recommend students develop? Whether you think you are a programmer or a coder or not, I would suggest taking COP 1000 and take that basic coding course, because you may surprise yourself. If you can get into a coding position somewhere, you can really make good money starting out very, very quickly in the field. It's a growing area. App development, computer software programming, robotics, those things are all growing areas. And coding skills, the ability to critically think your way through to a solution as you develop code or do tech support, those are all really important skills that I hope you'd pick up here, but I definitely recommend seeking them out.
Is there some place or someone that you turn to for mentorship, and how did you stay on top of the trend, especially something like technology? It's always changing and there's always new technology. So what are some of the things that you turn to make sure you're staying current?
Well, back in the day, there were a lot of trade magazines, PC World, PC Support, PC. There was all these PC magazines that I used to just get them every month, and I would just devour all the information in there. That's kind of gone by the wayside. I think now it's really just finding tech sites on the internet, subscribing to tech newsletters. You have to go out there and you have to search. There's so much coming out every single day, it's hard to keep up. So you really should focus on keeping up with the stuff that directly pertains to what you do, but don't close yourself off from everything else. Read the news sites, the tech sites, see what the new trends are. Some of it may just kind of fly over your head, like I don't need that, and some of it may be, well, maybe I could put that into what I do and make it an important part of what I do. So really what it comes down to is just being open to the understanding that the technology evolves and staying up with any kind of source of information that will provide that to you.
Now, how would a student decide what industry they want to work? You've worked in higher ed a lot, but you've also worked in a more corporate IT setting. So there are tons of different ways that a student can work in that career field. So what would any advice you would suggest on how a student would figure out what industry that they would be most interested in using their career?
Well, it's a combination of things. One is that I firmly believe that the industry you end up in, you'll fall into it. You'll be drawn to it. You will look at it and you'll just have a little voice in your head that says, this is where I want to be. And the other thing is looking at what's available around you. If there are no jobs in a particular area that you happen to live, that are interesting to you, you may have to take that risk and leave and go someplace else. Or, if you're lucky enough, you can find a fully online job that you can do from home, and it may not be relevant to the area in which you live, but it is something that you can still do from that area. It's going to be a combination of those things. Don't limit yourself to what's offered around you. If it's not enough for you, always strive for something bigger and better. And that may mean having to move somewhere else. You may have to move to Tampa or to Orlando to really find that career that you want, and leave behind, the comforts of home. But, if you find something you're interested in, you should go for it.
Any last advice you wish maybe you've been given during your undergraduate years? I know you said you sort of stumbled into sort of this career field, but someone who's being a little bit more intentional and really trying to research and explore and make sure they take the right steps. Is there any advice, now that you've been in this field for a number of years now, that maybe you wish you had gotten earlier on, and maybe it might have helped you?
That's a tough question, because hindsight's 20/20. I can sit here and say, I wish I had done this or wish I had done that. But ultimately, you just have to do what feels right at the time. But if you are interested in this field, then go for it. If you're not sure, explore other options and find something that does make you happy. not everything that makes you happy is going to bring you money, but I think there's a job for everybody in every field. So find what it is that interests you, and the work will come.
Everybody thinks they can go into computers though, because they know how to turn it on and use it. But
Well,
is there any special personality or sort of what they really have to be passionate about to really excel?
Well, there are a lot more people in computing these days than there are jobs. That's just a sad fact. When I moved down to Florida, I was looking for jobs in IT, and nothing was really available. But I was also I was looking to do something different. And then when I just kind of embraced that whole idea that I've been in higher ed pretty much my entire career, and I really enjoyed that, I went for that. And here I am. So it's really important to take your studies seriously, put 110% into everything you do in class. Step outside of your comfort zone. If you're not good with people, learn how to be good with people. Learn how to speak in a public setting. Learn how to use those soft skills, because the more well-rounded you are, the better off you'll be when you're trying to find work in this field. So that's the best advice I can give.
Thank you for your time. And where can students find you during the semester? If they have more questions.
Yeah, I'm here in Lake Hall, room 105. Office hours will be posted on my door. You can check out my faculty webpage. It's also there. If you have any classes with me, the information is in our Canvas shell.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.